Hello, church family. I'm sitting here in our sanctuary, not liking that it's empty, but trusting that it will be filled up again. I sure miss seeing you all. I miss catching up with you face to face. I miss sharing the Lord's Day with you. But again, I trust that God is at work through this present crisis, and we need to lean on Him. We grieve because we have lost this fellowship that we share. Though I'm thankful that many of you are reaching out through social media and phone calls and other means with respect to the guidelines given us for our health, for public safety. I'm grateful that you're continuing to try to reach out and connect with one another, but we do grieve what we've lost with hope that we'll gain it back again. I'm reminded of what Ezra chapter 3 tells us when the Israelites went back into the promised land after being in exile for decades. They began to lay the foundation of the temple, and although they were coming through this very painful season, they found reason to celebrate. And it says in Ezra chapter 3, verse 11, "And all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid." But celebration was not the only thing they were experiencing. They were also experiencing sadness. Verse 12 says, "But many of the priests and Levites and heads of the fathers' houses, old men who had seen the first house, wept with a loud voice when they saw the foundation of this house being laid, though many shouted aloud for joy, so that the people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people's weeping. For the people shouted with a great shout, and the sound was heard far away." The celebration and the sadness were indistinguishable. Both responses are healthy. Right now, we ought to be finding ways to celebrate what God is doing through crisis, that He is going to be glorified by awakening souls to the hope that is in Christ, by reviving the church as we no longer take for granted the privilege we have to meet together. God's at work, and we need to celebrate that. But it's also healthy to be sad because we miss one another. Being sad is a display of the value we have for one another, the value we have for our church's assembly. So don't feel bad if you feel sad, okay? Listen, I've been struggling with that the past couple days especially. And so we celebrate, but we also grieve. But we don't grieve as those in despair, those without hope. We grieve with those who trust that Christ is going to use this for our good and God's glory. Not only is Christ at work in the midst of this, but Christ is going to bring us through. I love how Paul describes Christians. Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 6 describes servants of God. This is how he characterizes servants of God. That servants of God in chapter 6 verse 10 are as sorrowful yet always rejoicing, as poor yet making many rich, as having nothing yet possessing everything. Remember, church, this is a season. It's a painful season. It's a grieving season. And you please reach out to me, call me, text me. I want to be able to encourage you and pray for you. I am praying for you now. But let's reach out and encourage one another. It's a difficult season. But remember that Christ will see us through.